Welcome back to the Impactful Introvert Podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce my guest, Yeliena Theophilatis, a psychotherapist and a hypnotherapist who helps female entrepreneurs overcome anxiety and build confidence in their business. Yeliena's journey is nothing short of inspiring. She transitioned from a career in finance to following her true passion for helping others heal and thrive. In this episode, we'll dive into how introverts can navigate visibility, overcome self doubt, and create a marketing strategy that feels authentic and sustainable by learning about how Yelena does it herself, if marketing has ever felt overwhelming to you, or if you have struggled with showing up consistently, then this conversation is for you. After you have listened to this episode, please go listen to Yeliana on her podcast, Peace Grows Here, because she shares a lot of ways to manage your anxiety that honestly, even I myself go back to often. I am an introvert, and there are times that I don't feel very much up to going on social media, marketing, being visible, etc. But her tips to handle anxiety are really handy. So let's get to know her. Hey, Yeliana. Welcome to the Impactful Introvert Podcast. Thank you for being here. Please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
I love the name of your podcast, just have to say, because I am an introvert first and foremost, the kind that had to learn how to be a little more extroverted and comfortable to do so. What I'm doing right now is actually not something that I ever imagined myself doing, speaking on a podcast, knowing that somebody else out there is listening and not being obsessed about how I come across or what if I make a mistake. English is not my first language, but it's that just gives you an idea where I'm coming from in my introvertedness to what I am now. So maybe if you're an introvert that feels a little bit unsure if you can step up your being out there visibility game, even if it's just being sharing your voice in a podcast, just take that away right now. And for me, just a couple of sentences about where I'm coming from, what I do. I'm originally from Russia. I'm a psychotherapist. I came to the States when I was 20. I was in banking and finance then and realized that, oh my goodness, there's nothing about it that I really like. I stayed in the United States, did a grad school instead, and here I am, pandemic, got me open my business instead of being like in the system and being a social worker there. I had no choice but to create my Blooming Heart Hypnotherapy and Coaching. That's the name of my business, where I help primarily female entrepreneurs and some other people who I know I can help if I gauge that I do, to ignite themselves and find those self-empowering beliefs and learn some skills to mainly help themselves with anxiety so that can be productive and calm and enjoy what they do, because entrepreneurial journey, it's a little rough around the edges at time. There's like ups and downs and whatnot, and we want to keep ourselves like in this somewhat optimal, for the most part, hopefully optimal state of mind where we can handle them all. So this is what I believe I help people to do.
I know it is very hard for someone who follows you on Instagram to even believe that you're an introvert because the amount of reels that you put out, and it's not faceless. The faceless trend is so on point, and I have seen introverted people market that, and that concept being marketed to introverts so much, but nobody who follows you on Instagram would believe that you're an introvert. It's That's the thing, and they wouldn't believe because people equate introvertedness with shyness or
Mm.
social anxiety. You probably may be shy, but then you've worked on it. However, when you're done recording, I want to hear what happens. Like, you have your reels planned, you record it, and then what happens?
When I record my reels, I think what helps me and my introvertness is the fact that it's removed from the actual audience in the very moment when I do. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question right now, but this is just my trick and how I go around myself being an introvert. And even overall, like in my work online, I found that just this a little bit of a distance in between me and another person, not just in reels, even now in a podcast, even in Zoom, there is it's helpful. It's helpful for me to feel a little more relaxed around it. I wouldn't say never, but I most probably will never do what I do in my reels, like, you know, act, my very primitive acting, but still, something like that. I would never do it in a live audience. I would feel really shy and awkward. But because of that removal of that immediate feedback, I just, it's me and my camera, and that's it. I'm just here to have fun. That's what helps me to do so. I guess there's another thing that plays into, but it's in people not being comfortable doing face forward reels. They want to kind of remove themselves from the reel. It's more so we're not sure how other people are going to perceive us, and maybe they will judge us, or we feel like we're not perfect. I feel like that's not necessarily, I would say, a trait of every introvert that's out there. It's could be just like a human condition, when we not exactly there to make sure that other people like it. The person will watch it on their own and they will make their opinion, and we're not there to defend us in case they don't like it. So there is that maybe uncomfortable moment there for many. But ultimately, I just have fun when I make reels. Like that's the secret sauce.
Yes, that is what is so important. Honestly, it's a lot easier to do it behind the scenes. Like, pull out your camera in the privacy of your house or wherever you are. That's a lot easier. The hardest part would be doing it in a public place, like many other influencers do, where they are probably dancing or talking and recording in the crowd. All of those feel scary to me also, because it's not even just the perception. Like, as an introvert, I'm thinking, oh my god, I am like, I don't have permission from these people. If I capture them,
Mm.
I might be annoying them, and so many things. All are things about how people will perceive me. And I think
Mhm.
that in the privacy of your home, while recording the
Mm.
reels, you can eliminate so many of those. And honestly, if you don't like how it has turned out, you can always
Mm.
re-record or just not post that particular one. So much freedom in today's way of marketing. You don't have to stand at a street corner or a busy market and talk about your stuff. That would actually be super draining for an introvert. But I'm
Mhm.
curious, how did a finance person end up with in hypnotherapy?
That's a great question. Well, let me say that first of all, I have never been really a finance person. The way I got into school, into finance and banking school, I was 16. This is how young you can be graduating high school in Russia at that time. I think most of people are graduating now being a little older than that. So at 16 in Russia at that time, you were supposed to know what you want to do for the rest of your life, because it's not like in the States, and I'm not sure what is like in Canada, but in the States, you have those 2 years after you're done with high school, first initial years of college, when you're still figuring it out, and you can choose your major and you can spend a little more time contemplating what you want to do. And Russia's like, nope, you're 16, you got to pick that one path and you go for it. And the whole the all the years we spent at university, there's never like exploring anything else. It's like 5 years of finance and banking, and then you're ready to go. technically to be a part of the workforce. And yeah, so I guess very quickly, the way I got into finance school, it's because my dream of becoming a psychotherapist, which I always wanted to do, always meaning since I was like a young teenager, kind of got smashed because of a very practical and tragic reason. My mom passed away when I was just a few months short of graduating high school, and she was the main breadwinner in our family. So she was putting money aside to make sure that I would go to that psychotherapy school that I wanted. And in Russia at that time, and it still is, like, that profession was not really that acknowledged. So we both wanted for me to go to the best school in Moscow and make sure that I got the right credentials and actually do something with that degree, because if I would go anywhere else, nobody would care. I would be like working in a kindergarten, because that's what that was degree is about at that time. So unfortunately and sadly and tragically, she passed away. She had cancer. So imagine me, I'm like, all right, now what? First of all, I was still kind of like in shock for like a few months. I had a lot of, I wouldn't say, I wasn't really depressed. I still graduated with like straight A's because that was just me. But I had a lot of apathy in terms of what's going to happen next with my life, because I was still grieving, very much grieving. So perhaps I could have paused there and figure it out and find a different way of becoming psychotherapist. Maybe go to one of those less accredited schools still and do this. But I didn't care. I'm like, I love math. My brother's in banking. I'll just go do the banking. I basically went to exact same university that he went, like the same major. And long story short, I came to the States 4 years later, realized that, oh my God, this is my last chance. If I go back now, I have another year of finance and banking, and then I'll just have to work. I can't come back to the United States as a student anymore. So I stayed in New York, and long story short, I did my bachelor's in psych. I found a school that took a lot of my credits from finance and banking somehow, and I only had like 2 years to finish the bachelor's instead of like 4, which is more of a norm. And eventually I found myself in a hypnotherapy course. I was then playing around with the idea of actually having my business. I was already convinced that I'm not made for that. But just before I entered a grad school, which I eventually did, my boyfriend at the time, younger sister, she's a very well-known hypnotherapist. She said, like, Lena, F the system. Please don't go to grad school. Don't get yourself in financial debt. I'm going to give you a way to make it for yourself in the helping profession that you like. So come to me and do my certification course for free. I did it 3 times actually. So I'm like very lucky that I had someone like in my family, basically, because we were around family at that time, who just brought me in, and I realized how powerful it was. And I still ended up going to grad school and doing a degree in social work. But yeah, there's just like, you see some certain things happen to me, like my mom passing away, not really caring about the choice I was going to make about where to go, then moving to the States, finally pursuing my dream. And my boyfriend, sister happens to be very well known, very experienced hypnotherapist. There was a lot of just things happening.
I'm so sorry about your mother. Losing your mom at such a young
Thank
age, I cannot imagine the feelings you must have gone through, and you still, like, expecting that you still have to make life changing decisions in that moment at that age in itself. In India also
you.
it's very similar, so I can understand that must
Mhm.
not have been easy at all. But I'm so glad that things somehow worked out for you in such an amazing way. The way it worked out, I feel it's like this was meant to be for
Mhm.
you. And hypnotherapy is still very in my opinion at least, still very, very new, very, very unfamiliar territory for most people, because the only idea of hypnosis people have is from magic tricks on stages where
Yeah.
it's all like
Mhm.
done for fun. So the therapeutic
Mhm.
way hypnosis can help is still not very wildly clear to people, and it's an intangible thing. It's harder to understand. If you're not wired for it, then it's very hard to understand, it's very hard
Mhm.
to follow through. So I'm interested more in how
Mhm.
you have used your knowledge and information and that certificate that you went through thrice in your marketing, because
Mhm.
you said
Mhm.
you did not want to be an entrepreneur. You are not meant to be an entrepreneur. But how did you handle
Mhm.
your entrepreneurial journey, your marketing journey? Because the biggest fear every introvert has shared with me, whoever I've spoken to, is marketing is so hard. I wish I didn't have to get
Mhm.
so visible and talk about myself the way I am expected to do. For extroverts, it might be easy because
Mhm.
talking comes easy to
Mhm.
them. Talking about themselves, their offers comes easy to them. So I want to hear how you have used your skills in your marketing and on your journey.
Mhm. Mhm. It's a great question. I will answer it in a way as if I was answering a question about how did I use my knowledge of hypnotherapy help myself to be more comfortable, putting myself out there and etc. Because I wouldn't say that I use the knowledge of hypnotherapy in my marketing material like my copy per se. I could perhaps because there's a lot of language that I could take from hypnotherapy and make my content a little more evocative and engaging. And I think I do semi good job for it. I just a lot of times don't have a bandwidth to like sit there and write my marketing message and on top of that like think about making it so intricate and really integrate my hypnotherapy into it, like my knowledge of the language. um, Maybe I should do that. But to answer your question in terms of how I use hypnotherapy to help myself become more comfortable as an introvert speaking out there, presenting myself, I, first of all, at the very beginning of me becoming a hypnotherapist, I had a hypnotherapy session myself as a client. We were practicing with each other students in a group, and I was just so terrified of like putting myself out there as a clinician, as someone who uses her clinical skills, like her psychotherapy skills, to help others. That felt like such a huge responsibility, and it still is a huge responsibility. I just more comfortable doing it now. And I remember that we did a session when I was guided by another student, and I was trying to convey to him that my deep desire to already be there, already have done it all and be really experienced and very good and have all that confidence about me so that I could implement it right here, right now. And he helped me by the image that he shared with me of a tree, actually. Like it was a metaphor of a tree that he shared that really spoke to me. I think he knew what he was doing because he know that I love gardening. So he just used what already would be relevant to me and imbued it with a meaning of let's look at the tree and look how it grows all of its parts at the same time, in the roots and the branches and the leaves and the flowers and the trunk. It's all kind of like working together. It's not like you are pushing in one direction and like you're only going to grow the branches. If you do, you're going to topple over and fall down. If you only do the roots, like eventually the tree will starve itself because it has to pull the energy from the leaves. And somehow that metaphor, in a way that I cannot still explain, and a lot of times that's true for hypnotherapy, that is just like, oh, it just works. It's just automatically somehow landed deep inside in a way that made me go back to that metaphor over and over again, mentally, when I would be working in the very beginning, putting myself out there, just like facing my clients for the first time, which was extremely uncomfortable because I was lacking confidence in my skills then. And I was like, it's okay. I'm a tree. I'm growing, maybe I'm growing slowly. It may not see it, but look at the tree. It started off as this little baby seed in the ground, and now it's this humongous, beautiful thing. And when I look at the tree, I don't necessarily see it growing, but I know it's growing. So I need to be able to acknowledge the little growth that I do every day, even if it's just a small thing, is like in writing an email to a potential client that, or a DM, right, that I'm not really comfortable doing. Just saying hi doesn't have to sell it on the first message, come on, but still, like, every little bit that you do that pushes you out of your comfort zone, of course at the pace that's comfortable to you, just acknowledging that, learning to acknowledge that incremental growth, and have a moment of recognition of like, oh, I am doing this. I am doing it. I'm like this tree. I'm doing my thing. I'm maybe it seems slow for, the outsider, but I know from the inside that I'm actually doing the work. And that definitely made me aware that I am doing the work, that I am growing, and changed perhaps my identity to a different one when I know that I'm capable. There's a big difference in between the person, that the version of myself, the one that started off lacking all the kinds of confidence, and who I am now. But it thanks to many things perhaps, but if we speak about it in the hypnotherapeutic terms, it's because I chose to pay attention to all of the incremental growth that I have done, and I celebrated each one of them, and I allowed it to become bigger than my so-called shortcomings, all the lack of the experience, and it kept me going.
That is such a beautiful message to note every single small growth you have and celebrate it. And I know I forget to do it because the big goal seems so far all the time. And the
Mhm.
distance of where I am to the goal is always in the forefront. How much I have accomplished is never like in focus because I haven't reached the goal yet. So that is such a great message that yes, you keep looking at your goal. Don't forget about that, but celebrate every success that you have got. Um, I would like to know, what is a fear around marketing that you currently have?
Fear around marketing that I currently have. That's a great question. Well, the fear around the marketing that I have right now is never really figuring it out. you know, I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like it's a big fear to dive into because it has lots of parts to it. But if I'm honest with myself right now, I would have to mention it as I just did, because I feel like I spent a good chunk of time studying and educating myself about the marketing, which I had to do because I do my marketing myself. And I still haven't figured out how the heck it all works together. And sometimes it's because of again, the result I want is very much different for what I have been getting so far. I haven't been getting results. It's so funny because as I saying it, I'm like, hello, you just have to apply what you were just telling about the tree and the noticing your increment success and all of that to this particular fear as well. And I can, and I actually do when I slow down before I get sucked into that vortex of like, oh, I don't know what to do. I will never figure it out. Like if that story, if that narrative begins in my head and I catch it, I'm like, wait a minute, you know so much. You have all of this wonderful notes that you make, and you can put them in practice. And just because I haven't reached the goal that I want to, and I should be I should be there by now, of course, like, in my mind, there is that fear that, like, oh, I will just never get it, to a degree that I need to be as successful as I want to.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Like, this thought has been there for the past couple of days for me, that the messaging, especially from business coaches and other marketers,
Mm-hmm.
is a lot more damaging because, yeah, you probably are doing everything right for you within your capacity, but then you hear a business coach say, work with me and I'll make it 10 times faster for you because my client so and so
Mm-hmm.
did it 10 times faster. However, not every single client of that coach or the marketer or the
Mm-hmm.
course creator's content is getting the result for every single student or whoever is signing up
Mm-hmm.
for them. Yet, like, we are aware of this and we still say to ourselves, if they could do it and I am not able to do it, that's definitely something wrong in the way I am doing it,
Mm-hmm.
in the strategy I've chosen, in whatever. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
make something wrong in us and we start problem
Mm-hmm.
solving. It is such a uh,
Mm-hmm.
commonplace problem, and that is all because of the marketing message
Mm-hmm.
that makes you feel that you're not doing it right, and you need that person who is trying to market to you.
Mm-hmm.
And and that is something that I've been thinking about. Like, yes, we should sell our offers, and making the connection that you're struggling and I can help you is very important, but the way it is being done right
Mm-hmm.
now is more damaging to everyone, because people have invested and not seen results. Anyway, not going off of the
Mm-hmm.
tangent, but I am curious, with all of this fear, how are you
Uh-huh.
marketing your offers right now? Strategically, what are you doing so that any of our listeners who are listening to can learn something and start implementing from your learnings?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a few things to say about that. However, what you just said really triggered a thought in me, the one that I've been also pondering for a long time, noticing how business coaches are marketing their packages. And there's something I want to add to what you said to help people to realize that the pressure that we feel to perform and the psychoanalysis and self criticisms that we end up going into because we see, like, oh, they're getting the results and I'm not getting results. I feel like a lot of it is due to the messaging that we get of, like, I increased my income in 3 months or like 5 months that many times. And we think, like, oh, I've been on Instagram for 3 months. I've been posting, I've been doing this and that, and it's not working for me. I must be doing something wrong. And what I'm realizing, and I'm like, what, a year and a half, couple years in into learning how to do this kind of marketing thing on Instagram, I'm realizing it just takes time and it takes a lot of consistency, but it basically takes a lot of time and more time that we think, because we are bombarded with those messages like, get it now, and if you don't, why don't you getting it now, then there must be something wrong with you. Like, no, in reality, I don't really know that many people I haven't met those clients that business coaches or some other people talk about, that they triple their income in 6 months in this with this beautiful blueprint. Yes, they exist. Like, outliers exist in any category of any experience. Some of my clients, they just like get well over, like, within one session, but I'm not going to market it as like this is what it happens every time. because it's not true, and there's must be many more factors that playing in into that success than just that blueprint that's being advertised. So realizing that for myself took my pressure off myself, and that's actually perhaps kind of a good segue to answer your actual question about what you said. Could you repeat your question? Actually, maybe you want to comment on what I just said too. Feel free, but then repeat your question. Sorry.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, I understand the need to be marketing that way,
Mm-hmm.
but the reason my marketing is so haphazard is because I have not been able to get behind that idea of show them what's possible. Like, logically, it's connecting with
Mm-hmm.
me. Yes, if I don't show them what's possible, they are not going to be able to make that connection themselves, that that is possible for them. And yet the constant thing that is being marketed is how to do this quick, how to do this simple is always mistaken for
Mm-hmm.
easy, how to do this instantly. And my reality, or people around me, their reality has never been instant,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever the result that people are seeking. And the more the marketers are marketing that way, more people are seeking
Mm-hmm.
that. So it's just a vicious cycle of uh I don't know, it's not even a bad
Mm-hmm.
thing, but it's just a vicious cycle of the marketing message that is being put in and the consumption or desire for
Mm-hmm.
that, and it's just feeding itself.
Mm-hmm.
But the the question that I had was like, what are you doing to market your offers right
Mm-hmm.
now? The strategy that you're using, some inputs so that our listeners can just take
Mm-hmm.
and try
Mm-hmm.
it and make it work for their business.
Mm-hmm. So at this very moment, I'm pivoting to a certain degree, not like 360 or anything like that, because I realized that the offer that I have, the one standing one, I don't have any courses yet. I had a like a low ticket offer, very low ticket offer, but I took it off the table because I want to upgrade it. So the only offer that I have is a high ticket offer, which is a bit expensive for the audience that I think I was pitching it to. It's for, I work with female entrepreneurs who struggle with anxiety, want to get over it and get into their ability to push through and believe in themselves. And to be honest, I feel like from my experience, female entrepreneurs at any stage of their development do have those moments of anxiety. But there's a difference about how they experience and how ready they are to invest in themselves to do something about it. Let's say, and I can relate to that so much. And this is what prompted me to change my trajectory a little bit in marketing and just the audience who I marketed to. If you are a beginner or you're just starting out, and I mean by starting out it depends, if you're a part-time entrepreneur, that starting out period can last a few years. But either way, let's say someone like a year or two, or maybe even 3 in, and they're still learning the ropes and they still just figuring out how to do the business part of it, and they don't necessarily have the money yet to put towards their mental well-being. They really probably want to and need to, but at the same time they are not my perfect audience for the high ticket offer that I have, which is the one-on-one work with me. And I realized that I want to make a course for that particular audience, which would be much more affordable for them, because it's going to be not as expensive for sure. And for my high ticket offer is to think about the category of female entrepreneurs who are experiencing anxiety, who do want to overcome it, but they also have the funds to invest in themselves. And I thought about it. I actually have a few ideal clients like that with whom I worked, and I realized that what was their common denominator is that they already passed the like this active growth stage. They have already achieved a certain level of success, and now they're either pivoting themselves or they scaling. Let's say I work with lady who decided to become an agency instead of being a freelancer. She finally like made her way to the point that she could be a freelancer, an agency owner, and hire other people. But that took a lot of strategizing and figuring it out and restructuring her business whole thing, and made her very uncertain and unclear about her own ability to navigate that in a good state of mind. So this is where I come in and help people to regulate your nervous system, to hold on to everything they already know about themselves, but their confidence and self-belief, but it somehow gets shaken down in the process of changing so much and dealing this like uncertainty of being this kind of entrepreneur is something they have never dealt with before. And those people are ready to invest in themselves and do one work, and they have the funds. So that's what is changing in my marketing. I haven't deployed it yet, so to say, but I'm going to be moving towards taking chunks like of my year, like let's say the next quarter, I will focus on one-on-one primarily and focus on talking about the problems that that particular category of female entrepreneurs are experiencing, to get noticed by them for that specific offer. And then I will, let's say, as I'm creating the course, I'm gonna pre-sell my course, not necessarily by sharing about the course itself, but building the audience prior to me launching it. Like for the 3 months prior to launching the course, I will be connecting with that part of the audience who is not like, they're not scaling yet, perhaps they're still in that growth stage, but they want something quick and easy in a way, even though, as you said, it's simple but not easy. One thing is to learn the tools and actually apply them, but they probably would benefit from something cheaper, something more affordable for them, but still very effective. So this is what I'm doing, and I thought I was doing it before, and I'm still very much learning how to start with the audience and what they need, and create product for them based upon the price they can afford and based upon the problem they need to be solved. Before this, I was kind of like trying this and trying that, and now I'm like, okay, this is how I'm gonna do this. I feel like that makes sense to me.
Absolutely, yes. See, that awareness of who you're marketing to is so crucial because, yeah, you could do social media marketing, you could do ads, you could do podcast pitching, you could do Pinterest marketing. There's so many strategies. The
Mhm.
strategy is not necessarily the thing that is going to help you sign clients. That is
Mhm.
such a mistake, like a rookie mistake that everyone who is in the growth phase is making, because
Mhm.
they want the quick results that the business coach is promising, but they don't have the funds to invest in a like 5 figures in a business coach over time. Feels too
Mhm.
much when you're barely making 1,000
Mhm.
or two a month. So I completely understand, but like your depth of understanding, like, yeah, these are the large section of people who could use my help,
Mhm.
but who is ready to invest in it right now? That
Mhm.
awareness and selling to that person is what, how you sell it could be done again in so many
Mhm.
ways. Content is one way, going and talking in at events is one way. Like, there are so many ways. Strategy is not the end all be all, even
Mhm.
though I say that yes, strategy is important, but being aware of
Mhm.
who you're trying to attract and who you're trying to sell to matters so very much.
Mhm.
Now, I'm curious, if you had a way of marketing of your own, like, how do you wish you could market? Like, you have to market. You cannot
Mhm.
say, I wish I didn't have to market. I wish just people came
Mhm.
to me. That is not what I'm asking about. I'm asking
Mhm.
about, I wish I could market this way.
Uh-huh.
Marketing is getting people to know that you have this
Mhm.
offer. So, how do you wish you could market?
Yes, that's a good question. I can definitely let go of Instagram anytime. I can definitely part with that part of the marketing because it is time consuming, energy consuming, and needs me to be very much engaged. Even though I love the community that I have built, all of the people like you and other female entrepreneurs who are in my orbit over there, and we're supporting each other and we're cheering each other on. Like, that's the beautiful part of it I will keep. But that necessity to be consistently posting, I can definitely let go of that grind. What I would rather keep in the way I would want to continue marketing is by podcasting, by having my own podcast and sharing something, not just in a 60 or 60, I feel like, what is that, a minute and a half maximum real kind of chunk of time, which is just makes me anxious already. The fact that I have to like deliver so fast. When I'm doing a podcast, I feel much more relaxed. And ultimately, I feel like it helps me to deliver a better quality content just because I am in a better state of mind. So I would definitely keep, and I want to keep my podcasting going and my newsletter. Those two things that I love to do. A newsletter feels very like intimate to me because there is only all of those, not that many, not like, I don't really have that many follows on Instagram, just like 2,500 or so. But like the portion, the very small portion of them, when you think about are in my newsletter, but they feel so special to me, those people. So I just want to keep going in this way because I know that they're actually listening and tuning in.
That is such a smart approach because you understand, you have tried Instagram, and after that, you understand that is not the vibe that I want to portray anymore from this point onward. I don't know how you started, but right now, that is your understanding. And understanding that after having actually used the tool, Instagram is a tool. Without using
Mhm.
it properly, if you said, I wish I didn't have to do Instagram, that would be
Mhm.
like not knowing if you really, really love it because you did
Mhm.
it your way. You didn't think, oh, I have to post one carousel a week and three reels a
Mhm.
week and five posts
Mhm.
a day. You didn't put that kind of a restriction. Probably you did in the beginning, but I don't see you.
Right.
From what I know of you, you enjoy making reels, and that is what
Mhm.
is your primary content on Instagram. And now you're no longer enjoying it, so you want to reduce that, and all of that makes so much sense. And definitely podcasting is a marketing strategy. All you have to
Mhm.
do is figure out how that podcast is reaching more and more people. There are ways to do
Sure.
that, but yeah,
Mhm.
if that is where you feel like you share the best value that is going to
Mhm.
attract the right people to you, that is what you should be doing. And I love podcasting too.
Mhm.
I can create content for Instagram, but it still feels like the experts, the way they describe
Mhm.
how to use Instagram is like you have to spend a lot more time on a lot of tiny things on Instagram versus
Mhm.
if you're creating podcasts. This interview, yes, it takes an hour of our time, but it is a lot more
Mhm.
enjoyable than
Right.
sitting by myself and thinking up how can I design this carousel or what words should go in this
Uh,
uh, real
oh,
script.
yeah.
This conversation is a lot more enjoyable. So it
Mhm.
feels less of a work. It is stressful. I will not deny that planning to be here,
Mhm.
then
For
the
sure.
editing part is time consuming. It's stressful, but I still enjoy that stress. After
Mhm.
finishing, I still feel more accomplished versus
Mhm.
when I'm doing the same thing for Instagram, like, I pushed that carousel, it's done. Like, it's not that kind of a feeling.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
I
I'm
can
so,
totally
I'm so
relate.
glad you mentioned that because yeah, we all misunderstand what marketing means. It doesn't mean constantly
Mhm.
churning out content. It means churning out content in a way that energizes you, not just keeps draining from.
Mhm.
So
That's a perfect quote. Just but as in my podcast, what I do, I put out like I do 3 posts for my podcast on Instagram. This is my way of inviting people into it, and I use ChatGPT actually to I submit the transcript of the podcast, and I ask it find me 10 quotes, because by the time I'm done recording my podcast, I don't remember, even though I'm like, oh, she said this wonderful thing, and I promise myself every time I'm gonna write down the time when that happened, but I'm too carried away by the conversation. So, but those quotes and nuggets, what you just said about doing the kind of a content creation and marketing that is energizing is so vital, because again, what I was just saying before, it takes time, and you want to be able to feel energized enough to be able to put the effort in for that length of a time. And if it drains you, and if you're unmotivated, and if it's just not something that you enjoy, it will become a chore, and it's definitely gonna have an impact even in the way you deliver it. That's why I chose reels and not carousels, because carousels drives me crazy, and I'm like, I think I just need to stop doing them and just do what I love.
And it's also about, it's also about the understanding that marketing, it doesn't end after you sign first client, 10th client, 15th client.
Mhm.
Marketing is never
Mhm.
ending. Like, as long as you have your business, you have marketing. So you better find the way that you love the process of marketing
Uh-huh.
rather than the results of marketing. Okay, so what is one thing about you or your work that your audience doesn't know very well about and you want them to know about you?
My work as a hypnotherapist.
Anything.
Uh, hmm. What they don't know about me yet. I'm imagining that, hmm, some of them. Oh, let's say that. Like that's definitely I something I haven't spoken about, even though that's definitely been a very powerful healing force in my life. It's the fact that I don't think it's a good way to put it, but I use spirituality, even though I don't know how can you actually like use spirituality. I go for spirituality, for the refuge in my spiritual practices when I need to bring myself to a place of peace and calm. And I'm a Buddhist. So that's something I actually been wanting to start talking about, just along the lines of what I already share about how to overcome anxiety. I share a lot about how anxiety is born in the brain, how to regulate your nervous system. And actually, one of ways to regulate our nervous system, it's a big overarching theme for our nervous system. The way it connects to regulation is actually by connecting to either people or like a nature place or a pet or a spiritual practice. It's all about connection and becoming a part of something, over a relationship that are nourishing to us. And it doesn't have to be a human being, obviously, even though that's of course something that we naturally gravitate towards, because we're social beings, we have families, we have friends for a reason. But sometimes when those are not available, for me personally, and what I do is I first and foremost, I sing mantras when I'm anxious. And I actually do talk about that, humming and singing as the first response to the moment of anxiety, instead of trying to think your way out of it, because thinking your way out of it actually drives us deeper. But I don't necessarily tell people like, yeah, I sing mantras from actually my training as a yoga teacher, the one that is about bringing may all beings be happy in all worlds, and etc. Loka samasta, that kind of mantra. I do it on repeat. And that what shifts my whole state in that very moment. And I really hope one day to find my way to that part of the messaging, because I feel like it's so vital to my life, because everything else can fail. like I can be so unsure what's going to happen next, and there's like a big transitional moment of my life, whatever that, business related, relationship related, and I find so much solace and I find refuge. This is how Buddhist people refer to their spiritual practice, as a refuge from all of that craziness. So yeah, thank you so much for asking this question, and I'm happy that I was brave enough to share the actual answer that is definitely feeding.
I'm so glad you got this thought and you decided to share it, because yeah, you could have said anything, but this is what you chose. So probably
Mhm.
you were ready right now in this moment to share about this. And I'm so glad that you said that it brings you peace, because as an overthinker and overanalyzer, I know thinking is
Mhm.
definitely not the way.
You're right,
Yes.
right?
I'm so I'm so used to not like now it's a different thing, because now I am
Uh-huh,
aware.
uh-huh,
So the level of
uh-huh.
thinking is reduced, but I used to think and think and think.
Mhm.
So this probably is the wrong thought. How about that? And
Uh-huh.
I've spun out. I have
Right.
spun out. So I'm so glad that you shared this, and please do talk more about it, because whether you create a course
Mhm,
or not for the people who are newer, however, just
mhm,
constantly being reminded of it is so much more helpful
mhm,
than like just being told that work on your mindset. Yeah, that is great. But many
mhm,
people
mhm,
don't
mhm,
connect with all the modalities that are available. So when they get exposed,
mhm.
they can pick whatever they want, and you
Yeah.
have
Mhm,
experience and expertise that can help. So that is such a
mhm.
blessing that you can share with everyone.
Thank you. Yay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I've been enjoying our
Mhm.
conversation, but before I let you go, I want to hear a recommendation of a book or a podcast. Please feel free to recommend your own podcast that is great
Uh-huh.
for introverts.
Mhm. Well, the book that I would like to recommend, and it's for introverts, of course, especially those of you who struggle with anxiety a little bit here and there, or maybe it's a bit part of your life. And I would imagine introvertedness that comes along with that ability for like deep introspection and deep thinking does make us more prone to get stuck in the anxiety loop. So perhaps there is that connection over there. And the book that I'm thinking of is, I'm sure it's actually going to be helpful to anyone, extroverted people, introverted people, and it's called unwinding anxiety, and it's by Dr. Jod Brewer. He is a neuroscientist and mindfulness researcher and psychotherapist. He's like psychiatrist actually. He did a lot of research about how anxiety is perpetuated as a habit, as the habit that is driven by exactly that, a lot of thinking that turns into worrying, and then we put some more thinking on top of that, not realizing that we're getting even more stuck in that loop. And the way he proposes is unwinding the habit of worrying using mindfulness, and I highly recommend that book to anyone with any kind of habit, not just anxiety. Just super enlightening. And in terms of the podcast, I have a podcast, the one that I said I'm gonna keep no matter what, and it's called Peace Grows Here podcast. It's a play on the popular garden sign, "Love grows here." This is what I saw online. A lot of people like put those signs around their garden. Love grows here, but since I'm working in the field helping people to build their peacefulness and ultimately, more love to themselves, I stuck with like that Peace Grows Here podcast. And it's a mixture of interviews, just like this one. It's where I interview female entrepreneurs who start out by telling a story about themselves, and then they help And then they share some mental tricks and tips that help them and their journey as of a human being doing this entrepreneurial adventure. So geared towards sharing mental health well-being tips more so than the business tips. It's not really about business, but they do end up talking about that too, of course, here and there. And there's a my solo episodes in there where I share everything that I have learned by working on myself and others to help people with anxiety.
Awesome. Thank you for the recommendations. The book sounds very interesting. I'm definitely putting your podcast link and the book's link in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom. I've listened to your podcast and I want all of our listeners to go follow the podcast right now in the show notes. You're going, your voice is so soothing that everyone's going to enjoy listening to the
Yeah.
podcast, honestly. Thank you so much for being here,
Yeah.
Yelena.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you.